What's up, everybody? How you doing? This is JD Shabazz again for another topic on what is. And the topic of today is going to be what is the origin story of the Libra Scales. It's real interesting topic because the Libra Scales, they represent balance, order, justice, and reciprocity. And reciprocity represents or means correcting something that you've done wrong and atoning for what you've done wrong, and making sure it never happens again. That's what reciprocity means, you know. But the Libra scale, it starts and it originates from beliefs that they had in ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt, and these beliefs were from what they called the 42 laws of innocence or the 42 admonitions of Mahat, you know. And in this time there, in the ancient time, they took these beliefs very seriously, so they put all of these laws of innocence on little wedges and little stones, and they posted them all over their cities like little billboards, so, and they all made sure that they declared their innocence everywhere they went. They would say that, you know, I have not. That's how they would, pledge this innocence, is by saying I have not. So they would say things like, have you wasted water? And you would say, I have not. And then they would say, have you, honored certain things there, or have you, like I said, it's just certain things that they would say, to declare their innocence, around the town, and they believed that when they passed away, their soul would go into what is known as the House of Mahat, which was where the judgment scene is here. If you notice, that I have my screen out, my laptop out, and I'm showing this thing here, which is this is known as the judgment scene. And this was something that you can find in the temples and the ancient pyramids that they have, from 20,000, 10,000 years ago. These are carved in these temples here and in these pyramids. They have this here, and this is the belief that they had there. So if you notice there, I'm gonna try to explain this. This character here in white, he is the person that just passed away, and he's going to be going through these different judgment little scenes there, while he's being judged. So if you notice here on the top, he's here and he's sitting down, and he's pledging his innocence to 14 councilmen here, which are the wise men here, that he's declaring his innocence to, so he's going through the 14 or the 42 laws of innocence with them. So they're asking him these questions there at the end of his life, and he's declaring his innocence. And after he does that, he goes here and he meets up with Anubis here. And if you can see, he is this fella here with the dog, or which is the jackal head, and he's there with him. And Anubis is the one balancing out the scales there for him. So if you see here, on one side of the scale, they have this vase here, which represents your heart and all the deeds and everything that you've done on this earth while you were here. And then on the other side here, you see the ostrich feather, and the ostrich feather represents perfection. So if you notice there, they had different animals and things that they would use there, and they noticed there when they were, studying certain animals there, that the ostrich feather, if you ball up the ostrich feather, it will always spring back in perfect symmetry. So the ostrich feather represented perfection, and that's what they use there on that side of the scale to represent perfection. So after you go through those 42 laws of innocence with them, and he balances the scales, if your heart is heavier than the feather, then you will go and you will see this character here, and it's an animal. It's a three-parted animal, which is it's a lion, it's an alligator, and it's a hippopotamus, and his name is Amit, Amit, I believe. And so if your heart was heavier, so he would take in your injustice, all of the injustice that you brought about in your heart and in your soul. There, he would take all of that in, and then he would, and then you would start over new, take, from there, and you would have to start over fresh, again from there, and you would try to do better from there. But if your heart was heavier or was lighter than the feather, you would ascend and you would see Haru here, And if you notice also here, before we talk about Haru, we have this fella here with the ibis crane head there. And you see that he's writing, he's writing, he is known as Tahuti or Jehuti. And he is the master, supreme scribe there that writes and has all of your deeds there. He's already recorded all of your deeds and knows all of your deeds before you even get started, So, and he's already recording that. And he also represents your conscious. He's part of your conscious, and your conscious already knows all of your deeds there. So you can't hide from that. And it's already recorded. So again, if your heart is lighter than the feather, your heart is going to go down, and the feather's going to go up, and you're going to see Haru. And Haru is going to escort you to see his father, Asar. And Asar is here, and he is known as the God of judgment. And once you see Asar, he is going to be the one to tell you where your next life is going to begin. And they believe when you did ascend there and you were going to go to the next level there, you would go into what is they believe was known as Sahu. And Sahu was the immortal world there, and they believe that immortal world was the constellation in the sky known as Orion. The Orion's belt was that immortal world that you would ascend to when you passed away. So that's where they believed heaven was in that time, So I just wanted to explain a little bit of that, to everybody there. And it's a lot deeper than even that. But this is what they believed, and this is why you have the Libra scales in your zodiac, and all that all originates from Africa, and people in ancient Kemet, this is their beliefs there that was taken. And you see that I'm showing you something here that is in the temples there, that's in the pyramids there, that's carved in pyramids that's 10 and 20,000 years old, So this is where all this stuff originates, and this is where they got it from. So I know that sometimes you don't want to pay homage to where homage is due, but they've gotten a lot of different things that you would notice from the Africans and from the black men. All this stuff comes from us, and when you understand this history, it all makes more sense to you, and it's very, very important to know your history, because can't nobody lie to you when you know your history, so you should take it very seriously, to at least try to understand this. And I'm just trying to give you just a gem, to open up your mind there, to be able to research more for yourself, because there's so much more for you to know out here and for you to understand out here. And if they're not going to give it to you, you're going to have to dig for it yourself, because nobody wants you to understand this, because they want to tell their own story, his story, but you have to be able to decipher the code of what is his story and what is actual history, so I want everybody to enjoy your weekends, man. And we're going to continue doing this, So everybody take care.